whenever you consider the fact now you've watched the second trailer, go back and watch The Force Awakens again, and think about the fact that Kylo Ren knows Rey is, or at least by the point of her taking the legacy lightsaber, he knew. He knew who she was, and he was like, oh, you. Even though in the movie he didn't say that, it was all over his face. He was like, it is you. And he actually was just that look where he was like, I found you. And it was so strange because he had just killed Han. I mean, it's so tragic when you think about it, because he had just killed Han, and he's so torn apart, and he's being manipulated by Snoke. But what if that was Rey in his place? Consider that possibility.
Yeah.
So, are they going to parallel that in The Last Jedi? I don't know. Do I think it's necessary? It depends on the scenes. Depending on the scenes they show, it probably won't be necessary because it will be implicitly implied. But I think that with watching the trailer now, you can look at Kylo Ren's actions and see that Rey was something else entirely to him, that it was never just really about the map. The map was important. It was very important, because I think it's one of the reasons he oscillated back and forth between her and then the map, and then her and then the map, because he was thinking, is this her? No, it can't be her. Is it her? No, it can't be her. And so he would go back to the map. And then he'd be like, well, is it her? No, it can't be her. And then she points out his fear. And he's like, oh my God, it could be her.
Yeah.
The way he looks at her like, oh shit. And then he has to go explain to Snoke that she's just some random girl. Don't worry about it, Snoke. She's just a random chick. She's no one. Don't worry. I can handle this. I can get the map from the girl. I just need your guidance. Just don't get involved, Snoke, asshole. This is mine, you know? I mean, he had that. He did. He had that kind of that just. I'm kind of at a loss for words at the moment. It's early in the morning for me.
He kind of had like that sense of ownership, or like wanting to take ownership over the situation, and he wasn't really wanting much interference from anybody else.
Yes, thank you for crystallizing it. That's perfect. But yeah, once you see this second trailer especially, but even watching the first teaser trailer, you realize now that the two of them watch The Force Awakens again, and it's all over it. Because The Force Awakens was so vague, I don't think The Last Jedi is going to be near as vague. I think, like we both were saying, they're going to go big or go home. So,
yeah,
honestly...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But no, okay. I think that if they go too vague in The Last Jedi, that it would actually end up having a negative...
being a disservice.
Yeah, yes, it would be a disservice to Rey and Kylo Ren's relationship and that dynamic, and it would really end up taking a negative toll.
Yes.
Because then people would be so confused, and they would be so, like, lost and
they'd be so
divided
because,
on what's actually going on in the new trilogy, you know. But I think that it was more that, like, the subtlety in The Force Awakens was more a part of their initial approach to Reylo, and then, you know, because they wanted to approach it differently. They wanted it to be harder. They wanted it to be something harder to work at than, you know, and that's why, like, I'm kind of hoping that it will still be very emotionally satisfying and well done in The Last Jedi. And especially too when we're talking about a Reylo kiss, like, one of the things that I'm kind of apprehensive about is how they're going to handle a kiss between them, because I don't really want them to handle it in a typical way. I want, you know, like, I don't want it to be something where Rey and Kylo Ren kiss, like, right before they're about to go off to battle, or right before they get separated or something. Like, I want it to be, you know, different from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And honestly, I don't think we have anything to worry about. I really don't, because the director himself, I think he likes all of these characters. Because I really, some people were mad because I remember he made the comment that Rey and Kylo Ren are protagonists, and he didn't mention Finn. But what I've seen that he's done with Finn, and here's another thing, I've seen this speculated, and I do kind of agree with it. I think Poe might die in this movie. And if that's the case, Finn is going to take on a whole, I mean, he's going to fully take on the Resistance plot, because when Carrie Fisher's no longer there in the third movie, Finn is going to have to take over it as a whole if Poe isn't there.
Yeah, that'd be really sad if Poe died.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering about it, because I thought to myself, especially when I was watching the trailer, the way he was delivering the lines, I was thinking, I don't know. I mean, maybe he survives, maybe, but that sounds like the line of someone before they're going to go do something totally crazy and self-sacrifice something really big. So I don't know. But the writer did say that he left it in a mess. Or the director, he said he left the whole thing in a mess. So I'm like, I'm excited. What happened? But
so honestly, that's what Rian Johnson said, that he left The Last Jedi a mess for the next person to do it.
Yes.
Oh.
See, for me, I'm excited because I'm like, oh man, what did you do?
Yeah, but, yeah, I'm just so excited to watch it. I'm actually going to make one of those paper chain countdown things.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be like super long, and because, we're like still 2 months away. But at this point, like, I have to have like something tangible for me to like count down the days.
Right.
But yeah, that would be really sad if Poe ended up dying. But I could kind of see, I don't know, like, I could see characters like General Hux dying as well. But I don't really know, like, how much purpose that would actually serve to the story.
See, excuse me, I'm wondering about, because I do think Phasma loses her arm, maybe, in the battle with Finn. Because I'm thinking, I had heard about that spoiler months back.
Okay, no more spoilers, okay?
Oh God, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No. That's okay.
Oh God, I feel terrible now. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Anyway, after the battle with Finn and Phasma, I don't think personally that Phasma's going to die, and I don't think Hux is going to die, because they could, but I don't know what, like you said, what purpose it would serve, because if you're going to have Kylo Ren's and Rey's relationship as extremely powerful Force users be explored, and it will be, because I think what the ninth movie is going to be about more than anything is a coming together of people from both sides. And I also think that, like in previous trilogies, how the Force users, whenever they get involved in a war, it always turns bad. In some way, shape, or form. It just always turns bad. And I kind of think that's going to be something that they might explore in The Last Jedi. Because you had the prequels where the Jedi, of course, they were too far one way, but they were getting involved in the wars, and then the Sith were getting involved in the wars, and it just didn't serve anyone. It didn't serve anybody. And then the original trilogy, of course, with Darth Vader and Luke and all that, but you see that Force users, their abilities, maybe that's what Luke has come at least to realize through his journey and what happened with Ben, is that the Force users, especially like Ben and now Rey, they're just too dangerous. Maybe they're just too dangerous. I'm wondering if that's something they'll explore.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what, it's hard for me to say at this point, just because I know I'm so in the dark about where The Last Jedi is going to take us and how it's going to end, and then where that's going to leave us for the last movie in the trilogy. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like it's such a like it's such a gray area right now.
But and the fact that Rian Johnson said, I left it in a mess,
Yeah, so I think it's good that J.J. Abrams is taking over after Rian
Mhm.
Johnson, but in some ways, like, if, you know, do you know if what's his name, Rian Johnson is going to be doing the script for the last movie, or for episode 9, or uh did he end up, is he going to leave all of that up to J.J. Abrams when he takes over?
As far as I know, he said he's not involved with episode 9.
Oh,
As far
okay.
as I know, but I look on Tumblr. Some of it's accurate, some of it's they say it's spoilers and then it's not. It depends. I kind of take a lot of things with a grain of salt. Some of them I do take seriously because it's from sources that have been right before. So but this is verbatim from Rian Johnson's mouth that he was not involved in episode 9.
Okay. Yeah, because initially he was going to be the writer for both episodes 8 and 9, and then I don't think he's gonna be doing that anymore for episode 9, which is like disappointing if The Last Jedi ends up turning out to be like a spectacular movie,
Phenomenal.
which
Right.
I have a feeling like it's gonna be like kind of out of this world.
Yeah, I have no doubts for anything in the movie. Finn's story arc, I think Rose is going to be great. I do think they're going to have a romance. Some people are still saying we don't know for sure, and that's true. It's not absolute, but I do think they're going to have a romance. I think that's going to be great. I think Kylo Ren's and Rey's story with Luke and where they came from and exactly what they are, and just because I think I remember I don't know who it was. I don't think it was Rian Johnson, but someone was discussing the fact that they needed to expand on the mythology and the universe of Star Wars. And I was thinking to myself, well, you have The Force Awakens, and The Force Awakens had so many red herrings, and it was so vague in a lot of ways that people who were saying, well, Kylo Ren and Rey, it's very likely that they could have a romance or at the very least some kind of platonic partnership. I mean, at the very least, those people were just like, no, never going to happen, right? I mean, they were disparaged, they were trashed, all of that. Well, you, I'm not going to say you can't blame the people who were trash talking. They were being mean, but I can understand why they couldn't see it because TFA was deliberately done the way it was done to be vague. And now you're going to have The Last Jedi, and I think we are going to have a treasure trove of new information, especially about Kylo Ren and Rey. And then I don't think it's going to be hard for them to embellish on a romantic edge at the very least, an obviously hinted romantic edge. They don't have to just be lip locked all of a sudden, but for them to realize, oh man, we've been dreaming of each other and now we share this. What are we going to do with this? And then possibly seeing a vision of the two of them maybe doing something in the future where they're helping each other. And Rey's just like, no, how could I help? Kylo Ren, he killed his own father. And because Daisy Ridley did say she doesn't understand, Rey does not understand Kylo Ren. So I don't think it's going to be that hard for them to actually develop a relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey. I don't think it's going to be hard at all because I think they're also going to piggyback off of expanding on the universe of Star Wars and how these two characters are intimately linked to the other. And so they're going to use Kylo Ren and Rey to embellish what Star Wars is and the mythos of Star Wars. But they're also going to use that to embellish on the romance of Kylo Ren and Rey. So they work in synchronicity to each other. I don't think it's going to be that difficult to write a romance for them.
How much time do you think that Kylo Ren and Rey will end up spending with each other in the next movie? Because I'm really hoping that they'll end up spending quite a bit of time with each other and they'll have a lot of development and a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, I want them to spend
Mm-hmm.
time with each other, damn it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I
so like what do you foresee? Because like I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I'm pretty optimistic about how they're going to portray Reylo in the next movie. I think at this point, if they go one more movie being super vague, that it's going to be really difficult for them to try to pull it off in episode 9 and have it be something where people are actually going to be rooting for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I can kind of see episode 8 as being a lot about them developing understanding and trust for each other, and also solidifying that connection that they formed in The Force Awakens, and then having
Mm-hmm.
that be something that casual viewers and other Star Wars fans who haven't really been invested in Reylo to go back and actually see that progression, throughout The Force Awakens.
Right.
Those are just like my hopes for what they're gonna do. But like, what do you think is actually going to happen?
I think that I know some people probably don't want to hear this, but I think that they will have time together. But I think the most important development scenes for their relationship are actually going to be paralleled and happening apart. And then once they actually meet each other, it's just going to be like Rey is just she is going to be thinking, what am I? Why am I like you? I don't like this, and she's going to also have to come to the understanding of the fact that Kylo made some decisions. Maybe, I mean, he's not as black and white as she would hope. Because that's also one thing about Rey that will be her drawback, and it's naivety as well. Because normally when someone's really young and they've never experienced being kicked in the teeth before, um, it's hard to understand how to survive. And then for her to have to come to the realization, number one, she's going to connect the fact that, oh, I'm like Kylo Ren. I'm like this monster. Luke, you're saying I'm like this monster who killed his own father. Why would I wouldn't kill my own father. If I saw my father, I'd hug him. I've never seen him before. So she's thinking this. And then on top of that, she probably will have some visions or learn something about Kylo Ren that gives him, because I think they're going to really capitalize on giving Kylo Ren a sympathetic background. I mean, big time, to the point that Rey is going to be very confused when they actually meet. And I do think they're going to have a saber duel, but I don't think it's going to go the way people are expecting it to. I think Rey is going to be the one who's actually fighting him again. But I don't know. Maybe Kylo is fighting her. But I just get this distinct impression that Kylo, there's just something personally about Kylo for me. It's not Snoke that is his end-all be-all. And he's always known that. That's why his loyalty shifted, and it even talks about it in the databanks for it going from Snoke to Rey, because he was intrigued by her. Well, now we understand he wasn't exactly sure if Rey was the girl. And then he realizes at the very end, it is you. Well, then his loyalty shifted, because Snoke couldn't give him what he needed. Snoke's been manipulating him this whole time. He talked him into killing his own father. And now we're going to have a mirrored scene where Snoke probably told him to go kill Leia, and Ben can't do it. And then you're going to have Ben go to Octo. And Rey has already probably heard the story or seen something to basically give her perspective a sympathetic edge toward Kylo Ren, to where she doesn't exactly know how to handle him. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things about their meeting on Octo. And I think they're going to saber duel, but I don't know how it's going to go, actually. We've seen some spoilers, but you really don't know how it's going to go, because like I said, it depends on every single scene that they've actually had in the movie, because it's a labyrinth of different choices where you could take it. It can go anywhere. So I think that they are going to spend a lot of time together, but I think the most crucial development scenes for their individual characters as well as their connection and their relationship actually will happen away from each other. And those are the triggers that will help promote, I guess promote's the right word, but it just helps to further their connection once they actually meet each other, because this movie's 2 hours, or almost 2.5 hours. And when you're thinking of all the characters you have in this movie, 2.5 hours is a good deal of time, but it's not a lot of time. So they're going to have to pick and choose specific scenes to illustrate in the quickest way what they want the audience to absorb about Kylo Ren and Rey. So I think a lot of it actually is going to be done when they're away from each other, especially in the first act, because I think it'll probably be around the second act that they get to start spending time together. And I do think they spend an undetermined amount of time on Octo. I don't know how exactly is going to react to this, because honestly, the fact that now you see him so terrified of Rey, I'm wondering, like, is he even going to want to approach Ben at this point? I mean, what's going to happen? Is he going to try to lock him up in a hut? I mean,
yeah.
what's he going to do? Because he just seems so terrified.
Well, I just think it's like, when I heard the spoiler about Kylo Ren, Rey, and Luke being inside a hut and Luke blowing up the hut because Kylo Ren and Rey are having a conversation that he doesn't like, I was like, okay, so how do they get to the point where they're sitting in a cozy little hut together? Like, like there's gotta be quite a bit of development that takes place before they end up in that hut together. And so I kind of like see Kylo Ren going to Octo, like, I would say, like, if I was within maybe like the first 30 to 45 minutes of the movie, and I maybe that will end up being too early, but I kind of see them either doing something like that or having Kylo Ren's and Rey's initial meeting being preceded by the fact that they have like this force bond with each other, and so they're sensing each other through this bond, and that's kind of happening while they're also mirroring each other in each other's kind of respective journeys, and then eventually meeting and stuff. But I think that if they do end up having a force bond, that they could really use that to their advantage to show
Yes.
to show
Yes.
to kind of have them spend time together and develop that relationship before they actually even end up on Octo together.
That's right. And you think about it, they have to capitalize on every little advantage they can take for this movie, because you have so many cogs in the machine that have to work. So they're going to pick the quickest way to start bonding these characters. And they've already set it up that these two are going to have a force bond. Some people still say, I don't think they are. And I understand the being leery of it, or tentative to, I guess, hope for something like that. But really, I don't see how they're not going to use that to their advantage, because now we've seen the trailer, and I mean, it's just kind of obvious. These two, and they're only showing you tiny little pieces of that. That's tiny. That is what, like 2 minutes of that 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah,
and some of those scenes might not even actually be in the movie itself, but it's good at portraying what's going to be in the movie.
Yeah, because I felt like the trailer, to me, like, the trailer was basically about Rey and Kylo Ren.
Yes.
And that's pretty much what it was about. I mean, if you consider that Kylo Ren probably had, like, what, 30 to 35 minutes of screen time in the last movie, and then to have him be almost like the sole focus of the trailer alongside Rey, and then to have, like, the other characters like Finn, who was a huge part of The Force Awakens, like, have just like a minor scene, with
it is letting you know.
yeah, like, and then to have like it come full circle and tie up at the end with him extending his hand to Rey. Like, to me, it just basically communicated that that is actually what the movie's going to be about. That will be the central focus. And it did it in a really indirect way. Like
and
it did it in
what?
a like in a really smart way, but
Mhm.
I was like overwhelmed by that when I first saw the trailer, and I still am, like when I watch it now, I see it more than ever. And this was actually something that I had written down, but something that I found really interesting about the end scene where Kylo Ren is extending his hand to Rey, it
Mhm.
parallels the scene where he is in The Force Awakens, where they're on the cliffside and he is insisting that he be her teacher, and he's offering to teach her the ways of the Force. And what I found
Mhm.
so interesting about these two scenes is that in The Force Awakens, he does it in a way where he's got her backed up against a cliffside and he's sort of exerting his dominance, and he's being kind of smug and arrogant about it. And
Mhm.
he and there's almost something kind of presumptuous about the way that he's presenting himself and presenting his offer to her, whereas in the Last Jedi trailer, the way that he's offering his hand to her, it's almost like he's offering his hand to her as an equal, but also the expression on his face is hopeful and tentative and slightly nervous. And there's something like it's almost like between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, he has learned humility, or he's been humbled by his experience and by his interactions with Rey. And I just thought
Mhm.
that that was something so interesting about, that was just an interesting parallel for me with, between the trailer and the movie.
Right, right. And that to me is the beautiful thing because Ryan Johnson has also made comments about how we will get to see Kylo Ren himself basically maturing. We'll get to see how he's haughty and arrogant, and then we get to tear that armor apart and we get to see what's inside of him. So I think we're going to see more of Kylo Ren tantrums.
I'm
But
so
I think
excited.
I know, right? I know. But I think what's important is when we see his tantrum of destroying the mask, I think that's going to be a huge shift for his character in the way he handles his anger. And I think that is going to be something very like a physical aesthetic in the film that you're going to get to see, and it's going to be kind of a guideline for you to understand that Kylo Ren is going from being this very, very egotistical, uh, and he is powerful and he is intelligent, but Rey is his equal, and she's knocked him down a peg already. And yes, he was injured, that's true, but he was foolish in the way that he handled her because, and I mean, the poor guy just doesn't know how to really interact with people and especially women. I mean, you don't go and of course you're feeling torn apart and you listen to the wrong father figure and you kill your own flesh and blood father who the girl you're interested in just so happened to like, and then you go to her and you say, I can show you the ways of the Force, and this happens right after you also cut up her friend. I mean, it doesn't exactly work that way, Kylo.
Yeah. It's like he needs a reality check.
He does, and I think we're gonna get that. That's why I don't have any worries whatsoever about the Last Jedi because I believe that what they're going to do with that movie is going to be explosive. I do think they're going to capitalize on the Force bond, and I do think that we might get to see some past history of Ben when he's a boy.
I'm hoping
I
so.
kind of I kind of do think that we're going to get to see that,
Yeah,
which I'm hopeful for.
I'm hoping so, and I think, and I agree with what you said earlier, that they're gonna give Ben a sympathetic backstory, but also too, I feel like there has to be more to his story and to his motivations for his redemption to really feel satisfying, especially after he killed Han. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
especially
yeah,
because
yeah.
people have such a personal attachment to Han. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like I absolutely love Han, and I don't hate Kylo Ren because he killed Han. Like I actually love Kylo Ren because he is Han and Leia's son, and you know, before prior to seeing The Force Awakens, I wasn't a huge Star Wars fan, but I did love Han. I loved Chewie. I loved Leia. You know, those were like my favorite characters. And you know, and so I loved Kylo Ren because he was Han and Leia's son. But there are so many people who hate Kylo Ren because he killed Han. So, you know, if he were to have just a sympathetic backstory, I think that that could definitely uh you know, help with his character and just giving him more depth. But I don't think that it would necessarily like convince people to forgive him or to like to say that Kylo Ren is worthy of having a redemption, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think I saw some speculation, and I had thought about this too. I think we discussed this in the previous podcast that didn't actually work with your program. Um, some people have speculated that what happened with Luke's academy or the new Jedi that Luke was building up was an accident. And this happens right around the time that Ben hears that he's Darth Vader's grandson. And of course, it angers Ben, it hurts Ben. He feels completely betrayed by his mother and his uncle, the two people that he probably trusted more than anything, because Han and Ben didn't have the greatest relationship. So I believe personally, and I don't know if this is going to be explored in The Last Jedi, but I believe that Ben shifted his desire for a father figure to Luke before he shifted it to Snoke. And that's probably why Ben felt so utterly betrayed, because Luke is the one who is a force sensitive. He was training Ben, he was helping Ben, and then suddenly it's just gone like that. And Ben feels completely, totally betrayed. And so his powers manifest, and it's like an explosion that destroys everything. And Luke might have been the only survivor because he could protect himself with the Force, maybe. And then Ben feels utterly guilty for what he did, and he embraces the, I guess, what people were saying about him, and that he's, you know, you're Darth Vader's grandson, you're just like him. I mean, we don't know what people did. It could, what if not? This is just speculation, but what if Rey has a vision of a young Ben Solo? Now he's 20, he'd be 23 at this time, but she sees him trained as a Jedi, and then all of a sudden people come at him out of nowhere and start yelling at him and spitting at him. You know, you're Darth Vader's grandson, you're a curse, you're this, you're that. No telling what they were saying to him. And first of all, coming out of nowhere, he's going to be like, what? And he won't understand why they're attacking him. And then whenever he realizes what's going on, he will be totally heartbroken and angry. And Rey, possibly seeing a vision like this, will look at Ben with a whole new perspective, completely new perspective. So it is likely that they are going to do everything they can to give Ben this sympathetic backstory, because he is Han's and Leia's son. What he did to Han wasn't right, and he will have to pay for it, and Ben will do it willingly. I believe that. Ben is a lot of things, but in my opinion, I always perceived Ben as having some semblance of honor. Even though he did what he did, he's coded as a knight, so he has that kind of honorable, you know, once I'm loyal to something, I stay loyal to it. You know, blood be damned, I stay loyal to whatever belief system it is. I'm there for it. And that is his detriment, and it's one of, in my opinion, it's one of his strongest qualities. His ultimate weakness and his strongest quality. So I'm very curious where they would take something like this.
Yeah, I am too. I'm curious to see what information that they're going to give us about just his backstory and about what happened with Luke's Jedi Academy and you know, and even just with Han's death. You know, there's I mean, there's even speculation that, or I just have read conversations and discussions um, where you could say that Han chose to kill Han in order to sacrifice, or he sacrificed Han in order to save Leia and the Resistance.
See, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to discount that either because I really, I don't know yet. Because, like we've been saying, The Force Awakens was so vague. And it was done on purpose because if they would have already heavily hinted that Rey and Kylo Ren have this strong connection to each other, and the fact that it was so um, enigmatic, I think is the right word I'm looking for, but it was just so mysterious the way he kept talking about the girl, the girl, and the way he was chasing after her, and people were mostly thinking, oh, he's just evil, he's just that, this and that. When you're watching a movie, because it is a sensory overload, you only pick up so many things. So a lot of people miss the subtleties that once they go back and watch The Force Awakens, they'll say, oh, well, duh, it's been there the entire time. So I think that it's perfectly normal and I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it makes sense that a lot of people wouldn't have thought of Reylo.
Yeah.
Because they were distracting us on purpose. Because once you look at it, Reylo's obvious. Reylo's ridiculously obvious, and it's not anything new. This has been done in stories all the time. Now, granted, I personally enjoy the way that they're portraying Reylo.
Me too.
But this has been done in stories all the time. So, of course, I don't have any doubts that they deliberately fanned, I guess, the flames of the Rey Skywalker theory. They helped it, baited people and kind of helped it get off the ground and take wing, because when you subtract that out of the conversation, how much easier is it for people to say, wait a minute, Rey isn't a Skywalker. So what's the deal with her and Kylo Ren? Why all of a sudden, what's that weird connection thing that's going on? Because most people are assuming, oh, it's because they're cousins, and he feels threatened because she's the actual heir of the Skywalker family because she's Luke's daughter. But they're missing the point, and that's on purpose. They were deliberately misdirected, and that's okay. That's why a lot of people they're shocked, and they will watching the Last Jedi. I think some of them will be very confused, actually, if I'm totally honest. But for the majority of the audience, and especially people who've been paying attention, I think the movie's going to make a lot of sense, and I think it's going to be very satisfying.
Yeah, I think so too, and I'm so excited for the movie to come out.
Me too.
I've so
got to
excited.
be careful. I've got to be careful when we're talking on podcasts because I do slip and then I give away some spoilers. So I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, I just I mean, just watching the trailer and stuff. I mean, it's I think that the action sequences are going to be pretty amazing. I can't.
Oh.
I've heard them pronounced AT-ATs, but I've heard them be called AT-ATs. So at this point, I'm not sure what to call them anymore. Like, I feel like my entire life has been a lie, but but I am so excited for the scene with those, and then just in terms of like other parts of the trailer that I've heard like some speculation on, like the one scene where um uh Kylo Ren is being followed by a procession of stormtroopers. Like, some people have thought that he's on Mustafar, which I have no idea. Like, he could be, he could not be. And I'm trying to think what else. Like, I'm looking at my notes to see what else I wrote down. Um, oh yeah, and then also the scene where Rey is being tortured by Snoke. That's like
Oh yeah.
probably like one of my favorite clips in the entire trailer, just because of how intense it is and it's so beautifully shot. But some people have been able to see the Praetorian Guard in the background, where
Mhm.
I, because of my vision issues, like I haven't been able to see them quite yet. But
Mhm.
some people were speculating on um, whether or not Kylo Ren was a part of that scene, whether or not he was present for Rey's torture, if he was being tortured himself, like how would he react to Rey's torture. And I mean, I would imagine that if he saw Rey being tortured, that he would go totally ballistic, and that we would see one of his rages.
Oh yeah. That actually reminds me. I remember there were two little teeny tiny little I guess teasers of the teaser trailer the day that it was going to be dropped, and one of them was of Kylo Ren gripping his
I
saber.
was just thinking of that one.
And it's possible that that's connected to Rey being tortured. I love that clip because it literally looks like Snoke is about to shake her body apart. She's vibrating so violently that she's just about to explode or spontaneously combust or something. It's just so awesome, and she just looks like she's in such pain. And I could imagine how emotionally charged that scene would be, because some people were saying, what if it's a mirror of Vader whenever he saved Luke? And what if you have a little bit of that mirror? And I thought that would actually be really beautiful, because you would still have Ben going back and forth between, you know, who, where do I want to stand in all this? And possibly what could have happened, what some people are speculating, is that he gets to Octo and he already has changed his mind. His loyalties are to Rey, and it's not explicitly said in the movie, but you know who Ben is loyal to, and you can see that Rey is connecting with Ben, and she's basically saying, okay, we're a lot alike. We basically have more in common than we understand, and maybe there's something in Rey's past. Maybe Rey did something, and that's one of the reasons that she was hidden away on Jakku. Maybe she accidentally had one of her little moments where she made something explode and killed someone. Who knows? I mean, I don't think they would necessarily mirror it like that, but they might. And then Rey could just think to herself, well, damn, we are a lot more alike than we first realized, or at least I first realized. But I'm kind of with some of the people speculating this, that he gets taken back to the First Order and to Snoke's big, like gigantic, I don't even know, it reminds me of the Dune Emperor's huge ship. Um, and Ben gets taken there, and that's where the final battle takes place. And Ben actually didn't want to be taken there. That's what some of the speculation is. And that at this point, he or Snoke probably knows it, that his loyalties have shifted, but Ben is back, and everybody is assuming that, you know, he's still Kylo Ren, you know, he's still a part of the First Order, but he's going to go meet with Snoke, and then Snoke happens to have Rey, and then everything just kind of gets all tangled up and effed up, and Ben is you know, kind of panicking but trying not to panic, and then Snoke tortures Rey and Ben goes nuts, and then you get to have a scene where Rey and Ben fight off the Praetorian Guard and Snoke flees. I don't know. I'm excited.
I'm so excited too. I can't wait. I am so excited to see. I really want to see Rey and Kylo Ren fight the Praetorian Guard.
I know.
But
It's beautiful.
I am wondering though, when are we going to see Kylo Ren's Knights of Ren? We haven't seen
See,
any footage of the Knights of Ren from The Last Jedi. I don't know, like, if they're
I,
just keeping it a surprise or they're trying to keep that stuff under wraps.
I don't know, because some people have said that there's been no word on them and they're just not going to be used. I don't know. Some people still believe that the Knights of Ren are going to be used, and um, some people are making videos about how, oh yeah, you know, this new leak just said that, you know, blah 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 about the Knights of Ren, but it's not actually a leak. It's just clickbait. So we don't know for sure. There's no way of knowing. I personally am 50-50. Either they're not doing anything with the Knights of Ren, or they're keeping it under wraps because it's a big iconic scene where Rey and Kylo Ren do meet in battle, and the battle doesn't go the way anyone thinks it's going to go, and then you get to see them on Octo together. Or Octo, sorry. I keep pronouncing it Octo. So I don't know for sure. I'm kind of either or on that one.
Yeah,
at this point.
I just would really, really like to see the Knights of Ren, and I think because they were in Rey's Force vision, like it would be really nice if that was a part of the cliff scene, or if that was a part of, I don't know, like it would just be really, it would be really, really cool to have the Knights of Ren because, you know, they kind of have made a big deal about them in the past, so it would be kind of anticlimactic if like they weren't included in The Last Jedi.
I know. Same here. I would love for them to be a part because it also expands on Ben's history as well, and just kind of gives it gives the Knights of Ren this really cool kind of aesthetic, but it also adds to Ben's aesthetic, and it just looks really really cool.
Yeah.
And it's not something you typically see in Star Wars, which I mean, it's kind of what they were going for anyway. Because I remember uh, some people saying, and this is just speculation, but also now that we've seen the trailer, I can kind of agree with it. But they say that you get a feel that they were mixing fantasy, kind of like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, with Star Wars, and just all this plethora of beautiful aesthetics and symbolism and everything. So I'm very curious about it. I do think that the movie is going to be very satisfying. I'm impatient. I want to see it now.
Yeah, I just want to see it now too. Like, but we're getting towards the end of October, or we are at the end of October, so it's gonna be November soon, and then we're just gonna be like 1 month away.
I know. I'm. I have to be honest. I think for me, I don't know actually, because like I said, the trailer only shows a tiny bit, but for me right now, I'm thinking that the scene that will end me is actually the scene between, or at least it's cut to be portrayed as a scene between Ben and Leia. I think that scene will end me
I
because
am
it was.
I am so excited to see kind of that interaction between Ben and Leia. Like I'm excited to see them actually have more of that direct connection with each other like that
Yes.
because we didn't really get that so much in The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was much more about Kylo Ren's relationship with Han.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I don't think we'll get this. I don't think we will. But what I would love to see is an actual physical reunion between the two of them in some way, shape, or form, and just how how would the writers portray it? What would they do? Because the way I would write it is Ben falls to his knees and he just doesn't know how to say anything. But of course, they'd be by themselves in a hallway somewhere alone, and he would just fall to his knees and not be able to look her in the face. And Leia would be angry at him, but that's still her son. So how would she react? I personally think she'd go and hug him, but she'd still be very, 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 very angry at him. Like, and he would feel so guilty. And of course, because she's force sensitive too, and she's so deeply connected to her son, she would feel his own guilt and know that he deeply, deeply regrets killing Han, and he wishes anything that he hadn't done it. And so Leia, of course, because older people understand this due to their wisdom and their experience, she would basically say, well, you have to live with this now, so you're the one who has to live with it. And of course Ben would accept that, basically in his head saying, yes, I do, I have to live with this, I have to make it right. And I don't think we'll get a scene like that, but man, if we did.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing if they actually had like a physical reunion. And it would be cute too because Adam Driver is so much taller than Carrie Fisher.
I know.
So she would look tiny compared to him. It would be funny if she like grabbed him by the ear and like jerked him down and was like, "What have you been up to?"
Oh my god, that'd be so cute.
Yeah. And I it seems like I read something that Ryan Johnson had said not that long ago about how even though Han like wasn't a literal ghost in the movie, that the ghost of Han had to be present in almost every aspect of the Last Jedi. And I thought it was kind of interesting that he said that, and it made me relieved too that
Mm-hmm.
Han's death wasn't going to be something that was going to be written off really quickly, that it would actually be something that the repercussions or the consequences of Han's death, and especially Kylo Ren taking his father's life, that he would be dealing with those things. And
Mm-hmm.
even beyond just Kylo Ren dealing with those things, we have Leia and we have Rey and even Luke, who
Mm-hmm.
lost a friend and stuff. And so I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to handle uh how they're going to handle that.
Oh yeah. Could you imagine the lack of it? It would be so perfect because with Kylo Ren and Luke, and if Luke refused to refer to Kylo Ren as Kylo Ren and called him Ben instead, just to be, I mean, I wonder if Ben would actually be upset at being referred to as his given name. I've wondered that because it says in one of the art books that it was Snoke who outlawed um, anyone calling Ben by his actual name. Oh yes, the Force Awakens poster versus the Last Jedi poster recently that was released. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, it has I know that it has Luke. It kind of is more, I mean, it has like both posters have sort of a triangular composition to them, but in
Mm-hmm.
the Last Jedi poster you have Luke's head at the very top, and then you have him flanked by Rey and Kylo Ren, whose lightsabers are paralleling each other. and that's which is interesting because in the Force Awakens poster, Kylo Ren is actually the largest person or the largest figure on the poster, and he and Rey are positioned directly by each other. Their weapons are paralleling each other, and there is
Again,
a light glowing over both of their hearts.
yeah. And then I noticed with the Skywalker saber, there's actually a little. I don't think it's an orb, but it's kind of a glowing flare of light coming from the saber itself. I'm wondering if that lightsaber, not the lightsaber itself will overshadow everything, but I'm wondering because that lightsaber was Anakin's, so in a way it's kind of like the needle that's woven everything together, really. And I think that's how it's going to be portrayed in The Last Jedi. Is that's like the needle that has the red thread that's weaving both Kylo Ren and Rey together, even though it's not implied heavily. Maybe it might be more nuanced, but I do think that the Skywalker lightsaber will hold some relevance, and I'm wondering about it because even Kylo Ren, he gets angry at Finn and he says, that lightsaber, it belongs to me, and he says it with like this ferocious face, and Finn says, "Come get it." Well, then of course, when Rey takes it, Kylo Ren's not even angry.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what exactly, maybe it's nothing, but what exactly Ben meant when he said that lightsaber, it belongs to me. And then for Rey to take it and Ben not have, he has a huge reaction, but it's completely opposite to how it was with Finn. And then, of course, in the novelization, you have the "It is you" line, which is physically portrayed in the actor's face in the film.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
have to say it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. What do you think?
I mean, I agree with you personally. I mean, I think that um, I think that because he had so much of a different reaction, um, than when Finn had the lightsaber, I think that he recognizes that the lights. I mean, that's like the kind of the curious thing about the lightsaber. And initially, when I think that there have been some things that have debunked this, but I always thought that the lightsaber belonged to Ben prior to Luke's Jedi Academy falling. And I mainly believed this because um when Maz ends up showing Han earlier in The Force Awakens that she has the blue lightsaber, he asks her in a very kind of defensive tone, "Where did you get that?" And I don't think that he would have really had that same level of attachment to the lightsaber if it had only just belonged to Luke. And and the last time that we saw the blue lightsaber was in The Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader chopped off Luke's arm and he lost it at Cloud City. And so
Mm-hmm.
so I think that in order for Ben to even have recognized the lightsaber, he would have actually had to have seen it since that time, or when he was younger and maybe training to become a Jedi. And so I think that the fact that the lights so I always kind of thought that the fact that the lightsaber um called to Rey was because she was a Kenobi, and I have no idea if she is a Kenobi or not, but like Obi-Wan Kenobi, it was because um she was kind of like the messenger, or the person
Mm-hmm.
to bring the lightsaber back to Ben Solo and not Kylo Ren. But the fact that it wouldn't respond to Kylo Ren, it was because he was so entrenched in the dark side that really it was, for the time being, that it was belonged to Rey. And I have no idea uh if any of that is actually true, or if that's just pure speculation.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it would be really interesting to kind of think about, you know, uh, the lightsaber sort of being symbolic for, like, what is sort of connecting them together, and or
Mm-hmm.
it kind of it's not necessarily what connects them together, but it's what's bringing them together. And so I don't know, like that's kind of what I thought about it, but I am not really sure if Rey is actually a Kenobi, and if Ben had the saber, the blue lightsaber before, when he was training to become a Jedi. So a lot of those things are questions that will be answered in The Last Jedi. So a lot of it's just like theory and speculation.
I agree. I would love if Rey's a Kenobi. Um, I'm an enthusiast for the theory, but I'm either or. I'm okay with her being no one
I am
or
too.
Kenobi. Yeah, or I mean, I've even seen the theory that she's possibly Palpatine. I really don't mind either way because it, as far as the story is concerned, it's exciting any way you slice it, really, for her. And I love the fact that, and I mean, it's beyond the shadow of a doubt now. She's not a Skywalker, but I love that fact because we get to see something new with Rey. Rey is someone totally new, and it's not that she's going to go save Ben, but she's a part of something bigger, along with a Skywalker. And it's however this pans out, she is going to inspire him to come back home. And it's not to say that she's going to have to throw everything down and just save him. It's not going to be that way. And the trailer even portrays it as that. Both of them are just on their independent journeys, but they're still woven together. They're like star-crossed, and once their stars cross, they can't break that entanglement of each other. So they'll just keep intertwining again and again as their paths keep crossing and braiding together. And that's what I like so much about it that now has been shown in the trailer. But as far as her being a Kenobi, I think it would be beautiful in a poetic sense. But we just don't have enough evidence for it yet. Although some of the evidence that people have shown, I am leaning a little toward it, but it's just not enough yet. you understand. It's just not blatant enough, like how they've basically done with Reylo now. They've made
Yeah.
it very blatant.
It's kind of the same thing for me with like Dark Side Ray origins. I think the one thing that really actually convinced me that Ray could potentially have Dark Side origins is on the databank profiles. Ray, Finn, and Kylo Ren, they all have, because they're the trio, they're being treated as the trio of the new trilogy. Each of their
Mhm.
profiles are laid out the same way, and for both Finn and Kylo Ren, the heading for the beginning of their backstory is the First Order. And when you go to Rey's, the heading for hers is the exact same, which implies that she has some history with the First Order, or that's part of her backstory that we just don't know yet.
I think, yeah, either way that they go, it would be very fun in the story and her story arc itself, and just the way it corresponds with the other story arcs. And I'm wondering about Finn's background as well. What we're going to learn about him, if anything. I'm I don't get the vibe that his parents are that important, but also they focus a lot on Rey's parents being so important, and Finn just seems like some random guy who woke up and he's actually very intelligent. He has his own mind, and he realizes, hey, I don't want this. It's not what I want. So I'm going to go make a life for myself. And then it turns out that he is, the big deal. He turns out to be the big deal in the
Yeah.
resistance, and it's never what you expected. And it's just like, wow, I'm this random person who went on this journey. And it's kind of like that is the one thing they're pushing in this new trilogy. That's how you know that a Skywalker is important. Kylo Ren is the Skywalker, but the biggest thing about this trilogy is possibly new characters being injected into the storyline. That this is the Skywalker storyline is important, but you have brand new faces from brand new places who are being injected into the storyline. And I think that is really what helps to um, contrast as well as complement all three of the main characters, because they really all three come from different places, yet they're tied to the First Order in some way. And it could be that Rey originally, that's basically where she originated from, was the First Order, and yet she's no longer with them. And the two people who didn't originate from the First Order are basically shackled. And that kind of contrast, I think, is very interesting if that's the way that they go.